This is SkyTour News for July 1st. I'm Amanda Curran. Today, in honor of Canada Day, we look at some Canadian firsts in the journey to space. May 10, 1990. The Canadian Space Agency was established. Between 1945 and 1960, Canada undertook a number of small launchers and satellite-related projects under the aegis of defense research, including development of the Black Brant rocket, as well as a series of advanced studies examining both orbital rendezvous and re-entry. In 1957, scientists and engineers at the Canadian Defence Research Telecommunications Establishment embarked on a project initially known simply as S-27, or the Topside Sounder Project. This work would lead to the development of Canada's first satellite, known as Alouette-1. With the launch of Alouette-1 in 1962, Canada became the third country to put an artificial satellite into space. The technical excellence of the satellite, which lasted for 10 years instead of the expected one, prompted the further study of the ionosphere with the joint Canadian-designed, US-launched ISIS satellite program. The launch of the Anik A1 in 1972 made Canada the first country in the world to establish its own domestic geostationary communications satellite network. These and other space-related activities in the 1980s compelled the Canadian government to promulgate the Canadian Space Agency Act, which established the Canadian Space Agency. September 29, 1962. Alouette-1 is launched. Alouette-1 was Canada's first satellite and the first satellite constructed by a country other than the Soviet Union or the United States, and was the fourth country to operate a satellite. As part of the joint US-Canadian scientific program, its purpose was to investigate the properties of the top of the ionosphere and the dependence of those properties on geographic location, season, and time of day. A key device on the Alouette were the radio antennas consisting of thin strips of beryllium copper bent into a slight U shape and then rolled up into small discs in a fashion similar to a measuring tape. When triggered, the rotation of the satellite created enough centrifugal force to pull the disc away from the spacecraft body, and the shaping of the metal caused it to unwind in a long spiral. The result was a stiff circular cross-section antenna known as STEM, for Storable Tubular Extendable Member. Alouette's mission was expected to last only a year, but ended up lasting for 10 years, before the satellite was deliberately switched off on September 30, 1972. It was estimated to remain in space orbit for the next 1,000 years. The name Alouette came from the French for skylark and the French-Canadian folk song of the same name. November 13, 1981. Canadarm1 is launched. The Shuttle Remote Manipulator System, also known as Canadarm1, is a series of robotic arms that were used on the space station orbiters to deploy, maneuver, and capture payloads. The Canadian company DSMA Atcon had developed a robot to load fuel into CANDU nuclear reactors, which attracted NASA's attention, and in 1969, Canada was invited to participate in the Space Shuttle program, and in 1975, NASA and the Canadian National Research Council signed a Memorandum of Understanding that Canada would develop and construct the Shuttle Remote Manipulator System. The basic Canadarm configuration consists of a manipulator arm, a Canadarm display, and a control panel, including rotational and translational hand controllers at the orbiter's aft flight deck flight crew station, and a manipulator controller interface unit that interfaces with the orbiter computer. The Canadarm can also retrieve, repair, and deploy satellites, provide a mobile extension ladder for extra-vehicle activity, crew members for workstations or foot restraints, and be used as an inspection aid to allow the flight crew members to view the orbiter or payload surface through a television camera on the Canadarm. The Canadarm's 90th and final shuttle mission was on July 2011 on STS-135, delivering the Raffaello MPLM to the ISS and back, and is now on permanent display at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum in Ottawa. This is SkyTour News. Hi, my man's Kurt.